Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio today I have a dear friend who I have known for back in our college days, well over 35 years. It's been a long time, but she has taken the time out of her busy schedule to join in with us to share a little bit of her journey. And so, without any further ado, I would like to welcome to the show Miss Rachel Stevens. Rachel, how are you doing?
Hi, thank you for asking me to join you this evening.
Absolutely. It is a pleasure to have you and a pleasure to actually hear your voice and see you after such a long time. But what a great way for us to connect and just kind of uh, use this opportunity to encourage and inspire some people that are going to have an opportunity to listen to this show. So thank you again for being on with me today.
Yes,
Um,
thank you.
so before we jump right into things, what I would like to do is give you an opportunity to just kind of tell everybody a little bit about yourself. So go ahead and do that for us, if you would.
Okay, well, like you said, my name is Rachel. I grew up in Wisconsin. Um, my, I have, I grew up with an adopted family. So I was adopted at the age of 2 weeks old, and I was adopted into a Caucasian family. So my parents adopted me first, and then they had two children later on. So I am one of three children in my immediate family. And then when I got into my college age, um, I found my biological family that was located in Chicago. So over the years, I've developed a relationship with my biological family as well as my adoptive family that I grew up with. So yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an interesting journey. And as you know, journeys never end. So that's
Exactly,
kind of,
exactly.
yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Okay. Well, we already starting off the show with an interesting dynamic. We're going to dig into that a little bit further. So thank you for sharing that. And so with that said, when we talk about the journeys of life, you can't really discuss a journey without taking the time out to actually go back to the beginning. So we're going to elaborate a little bit more about what the beginnings were like for you. And so what I would like for you, if you would share with us, what was it like for you growing up, in particular, being an African American, young girl at that time, of course, adopted by Caucasian parents in Wisconsin? What was that dynamic like for you growing up in that setting? Any fond memories that you have, as well as challenges that you had to encounter along that way growing up? So, if you would just kind of share what that experience was like with you.
Okay, well, I think that with my parents adopting me before they had their own two children, I think it was probably different than some other people that have been adopted. That I feel kind of gave me the benefit of me already being in the family. You know, so when they came along, I was already there. Um, so I think that probably might have made me feel a little more secure, maybe than other um, adopted people. Um, it was a challenge, just the basic challenges. When I was younger, um, like there was not a diversified culture in the city that I grew up with. So it was mainly a Caucasian city. So I grew up just like, I would get weird questions from people. Like when I was younger, it was, oh, your dad must be a Packer, And then when I got older, it was, oh, you must be married to a Packer, you know? And I had explained to them that just because I'm, African American or Black person in the city of Green Bay does not mean that I have to be Packer affiliated. In fact, my dad is white, he's a professor, and I'm not married to any Packer. I'm just here growing up and living here. I was fortunate that there was a family um, that my parents knew that were also Caucasian, a couple that was Caucasian, that had three of their own biological children, but then they had also adopted three African American children. So I became pretty close to one of the three children that they adopted. So that was kind of nice that I had that person to who like kind of understood what I was going through as far as feeling like you're the odd person out and like literally the black sheep at school or the black sheep in the family. Um, It was a little different between the two of us because she had, an African American brother and a twin sister growing up in the family, so she wasn't like as alone as I was in the situation. But I was fortunate that I got a really good family who, you know, taught me the values that kind of made me who I am today. Um, I grew up Catholic in a Catholic church. I went to Catholic school, so I tried to maintain some of those values. As I grew older, it was difficult at times because I had challenges like with the whole dating scene um, that they kind of didn't understand, and I don't know. It had its difficult times, but it also had its good memories. I mean, I got to do a lot of things that maybe some of like the inner city kids might not have had the opportunity to do, like you know, camping and fishing and going to museums and stuff that some children don't get to do. So I tried to do over the years is to try to, instead of being upset when people ask me questions about my ethnicity, is I use that to kind of welcome an opportunity to educate them as far as what I knew of my culture and how I felt growing up in my community. Because I felt kind of like sharing knowledge with them instead of being angry at them or being irritated because they didn't understand. Um, well, if they don't understand, teach them. Like if instead of being part of the problem for ignorance, why not teach them and at least give them a conversation to or an opportunity to maybe expand their mind or think of things maybe in a different light than they might have previously. It helps, I think, hopefully to promote tolerance and understanding and acceptance of people other than just your own community or the things that you're used to. So
Gotcha, gotcha, and that's good stuff. So you were adopted first, and then you have the two other siblings. They are biological children of your adoptive parents. Is that correct?
correct, correct.
Okay. Um, so you said you were adopted at 2 weeks old.
Hmm.
When did you officially know that you were adopted? Like, how did that conversation happen? Do you recall like the moment that you were officially told, hey, you are adopted? How did that go?
I can't because it was, I've been like being adopted at the age of 2 weeks old. It's a long time ago. So I don't remember specifically when that conversation happened, but I do remember as I was growing up, my mom having conversations with me about, well, when your mom was pregnant, she decided that she really wasn't able to take care of you like she wanted to, and so she decided to give us, you, and we're blessed to have you. And your mom made it a choice to give you life and to allow you to be part of our lives. And she told me, like my mom and dad told me the story about how they went down to the adoption agency, they want to adopt a baby, and there weren't a lot of white babies available at the time. So the nurse had said, well, we have our hard to place children. Um, and my parents said, that's fine. We just want a baby. And they said, well, do you want a boy or girl? And they said, well, we don't care as long as it's healthy. She said, well, you have to pick. And they was like, okay, a boy. And then she went back into the room and she came back to my parents and said, well, we have this girl. And they said, we don't care. And so that's how I got adopted. I just remember telling me, your mom, loved you enough to want a good to want a better life for you. So she decided to give you up for adoption, and I'm sure she's just told me, like, I'm sure your mom thinks about you every time your birthday comes around, and um, you might have brothers and sisters, you might have a family out there, but they know that your mom gave you up out of love, and um, we love you, and we're glad that we have you. So that's kind of how that conversation went over the years, just on my birthday, and um, yeah, there's a lot of questions, like even like when you're younger, like playing with the kids, like I'll go down to the park with my sister, and they'd be like, my sister would be like, "Oh, this is my sister," and they're like, well, how come she's black and you're white? You are not sisters." And then we explained, and they're like, "Oh," because they didn't know, So that was like, I'm sure for some of the children in the park and stuff that we play with, that probably was some, for some of them, the first time that they ever heard of adoption, or having a person of another ethnicity in a family. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. And of course, you and your siblings um, always had a relatively close bond with each other growing up.
Yeah, I think it's a little different because I wouldn't say that we're close, close. Like we're not close, close. Like I don't call them every day. I don't go over to their house and hang out. My sister lives like 2 hours away. My brother actually
Mhm.
lives in Green Bay, but I really pretty much only see them like when we have family functions like Christmas, or my parents are having some sort of get together, or there's a graduation or something like that. But we've always gotten along okay. You know what I
Gotcha.
mean? And like if I need something, if I need assistance, I can call my brother at any time and be like, "Hey," like the other day, I was like, like this past winter, I was like, my car is stuck in the driveway at work and I want to leave and I can't leave because my tire is stuck." And so my brother and his son rushed over and they dug me out and got me out. So we get along good. It's just that our lives are so different. Their challenges
Mhm.
and my challenges are just so different.
Do you
Like my
think that was
brother,
something that evolved as you? It was something that evolved as you got older, or was it just kind of always like that? Do you think?
um, I think it started probably evolving in high school, or probably even more so like when we left, for our different colleges.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, my sister was a homemaker. She graduated with her master's degree, but she decided to homeschool her kids, and she got married, so she has 5 kids, and she basically went to college, found somebody, got married, and now is living her life with her husband and has been okay. Um, Now she's working for the church as a musician. She puts together music and stuff for the services. My brother, he is a police officer, so He worked for a while on patrol, and then he moved into the courts. So he does that, and he also a few years ago, well, probably about maybe it's about 5 years ago, also built his own martial arts studio. So he works as a police officer and he does martial arts, and he's here in town. So, and he has 5 kids, and he also, along with that, he has one of the children is a special needs, which is interesting because I work with special needs
Mm.
adults. So, um,
Wow.
yeah, so it's I have 2 children myself. So, like I said, we're close, but we're not close. Like we're close enough to help each other out and to talk to each other, and we don't have any issues like that. But it's just like their lives are so different from mine, and I think
Hmm.
a lot of that is the choices that I made, which were not always the best choices, but the choices I made, and a lot of that I think stems from just me struggling a little bit with being adopted, and acceptance into my culture um, was difficult.
Okay. Okay. Very interesting. How did your how were your parents how did they go about navigating, I guess, helping you to be able to identify with your culture? Like I know you had made mention about them having friends who just happen to have adopted black children as well, but I'm just thinking of like basic things like whether it was the selection of toys that you got. Did you get a chance to play with, you know, dolls that were black girls?
Yes.
Did you get to read
Yep.
books that were that had black characters in them? How were they able to navigate just even things like, showing you how to take care of whether it's your skin or your hair, because obviously African Americans versus Caucasians, we have
A
different
lot different.
textures and
A lot
feels. And
different.
so
Yes.
how were they even able to navigate that, to show you, to identify that? Was that a challenge? And if so, how did you all
I'm
even work through that?
I'm sure it was a challenge for them. My parents, well, my dad being a college professor, um, and my mom being into arts and humanities, there was a lot of they read a lot of books to us. Like, all three of us in the evenings we read books, and they would incorporate, books by Black authors. They would incorporate like when certain shows would come up, like Roots. We would watch we would watch that every year. Um, we watched what was that? Different Strokes, you know. And then I got black dolls, I got black dolls and white dolls and Asian dolls, so like there was like all the colors there. Um, my mom's one of her best friends from college that shared first chair violin with her, because they were in the music department, was black. So I'm sure that she was talking to her about, different things that she needed to know about as far as, the care of me goes. I know that at the time, like there wasn't a lot of there was like, well, basically no black hair products in Green Bay at that time. So my mom's sister, who's going to college in Oshkosh, which is, like an hour from where we lived, they had a little bit more diversity in that city at the time. So she would get my aunt to bring black hair products back for me. And my mom learned to like do the hot iron on the stove, to, hot iron my hair, and how to braid it to keep it manageable and all that. It was
Mhm.
different.
Interesting. Interesting, interesting. And I'm glad actually to hear that your parents at least made an effort to try to incorporate that element, like you said, the different readings, the different, toy selections, things like that. So at least you had something to identify. And as you stated, I'm sure it was still, nevertheless, still a challenge for them, just
It was.
obviously being of different cultures and such. But it's always refreshing to know that those efforts were at least taken to give you some kind of connection to who you were, in terms of just your ethnicity and where you come from and things like that, despite being raised in a Caucasian household. So
Yeah.
that's very interesting. So let me
Yeah,
ask you
my
this.
my dad being a professor, he was around a lot of
Mhm.
students, and they would have the international students that would come in, and some black students from the city would come in, and so he had the opportunity to learn some things from them too. And I know that my mom had told me, because at one time, I can't remember what grade I was in, it was find out from your parents why they named you what they did and how they came up with their names. And so my parents had told me that when they were choosing a name for me, um, my dad had an African student that he knew, and had asked him for a list of African names and their meanings. And that was how they had come up with my middle name,
Okay.
which is Nigerian. So they had the opportunity to, you know, they used the opportunities that were there for them in order to make some decisions and to help me with my life and help me be accepted and stuff like that. So
Okay. So was the decision to, and I don't know if this was ever explained to you, but was the decision to adopt you just something that they felt compassionate about, the idea of adopting children who needed to be adopted? Because, and I'm asking this
yes,
because typically when you think about somebody adopting a child, oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes they're doing it because they can't have children of their own.
exactly.
And so in this case, clearly they could have children, but yet they chose the first child to
Hmm.
be the adopted child, and chose the first child to be of a different race. So it's,
Yes,
it's
it's
just, I'm
different.
always kind of thinking when situations like this, because I've had an opportunity, of course, over the years to meet a few people who've been in a similar situation as yours. And I'm thinking, what was the thought process on their end? And I know you can only speak to a certain degree, obviously their
Yeah.
thoughts are their thoughts, but I was just wondering if, did that ever get explained to you? Like, why did they
Yes.
choose the adoption route, knowing that they could actually have their own biological children?
Yes. What my parents told me was that they knew that they could always, they knew that they could probably have children, But my mom just thought, like, she said, we just thought, like, there's so many children out here that need homes. We know we can have children, but why not help a child that needs a home first?
Mm-hmm.
And so that was their first thought. And then my mom also explained to me that she, at the time, was like a big Martin Luther King's fan,
Mm-hmm.
and she was a big supporter of like the melting pot idea of all the races, love, joy, and peace, whatever. I mean, really, I mean, this is back, I was born in '69. So, um, so with her being a Martin Luther King fan and her looking for a child that needed a home that they could, um, be there for, I guess that was just a perfect situation for them when the nurse said, "We have this black girl that's
Mm-hmm.
special in the hard to place sections, and we really need a home for her." So
Okay.
yes, when they
Okay.
decided, that's how kind of how they decided.
Gotcha. Gotcha. And so, when did you decide? When did it first become important for you to say, I would like to find out, who and where is my biological mother? When did that, ignite inside of you
Um,
of wanting to find that out?
oh, well, that's interesting that you should ask this. Um, I mean, I'd always been curious about it. Like I said, she'd always mentioned it to me once in a while, and we talked about it here and there. Um, and when I was in college, I went through a really tough breakup, and to the point where my parents had to pull me out of school for 2 weeks and sent me to counseling and all that stuff, which was good. It wasn't a bad thing. But like even up to this point, my mom had noticed like me withdrawing and becoming a little bit more depressed. Closing my door and just being in my room, being in the dark a lot. Um, there's only a few people that I would really talk to on the phone. Like I was kind of maybe I was isolating a little bit. So when this final straw happened, my mom, she sat down with me and she's like, you know what? She's like, I know you've been struggling with depression. She's like, and maybe it's because we try to be the best parents we can. We try to teach you everything that we know, but there's just some things we can't teach you about. Like we can read books to you, we can watch black TV shows with you, you know, and be there for you, but we can't teach you what it is like to be black because we're not black ourselves. And she's like, your dad and I were talking, and we're thinking that maybe it would help and make you feel better if you knew where your roots were from.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, she said, would you be interested? And your dad and I have talked about this, and we've decided that, if you would like to, it's your choice, but if you would like to, we will help you to locate your biological family.
Okay.
She's like, because I think maybe that would give you a better understanding, or at least give you some ground, as to your roots.
Gotcha.
So I thought about it, and I said, yeah, okay. So that was actually part of my Christmas present because that was right around Christmas time. Is they paid the little bit of money. I don't know how much it was. I don't think it was that much, but to have my file opened, because they went to the adoption agency that they got me from, and had gotten a social worker, and the social worker opened the file for them, and sent me a letter. And so I started corresponding with the caseworker, and then I remember because by the time they actually located my family, I was already back at college and I had transferred to a different college. And I remember sitting there in the apartment, and my caseworker calling me, and she's like, I have good news and I have bad news. She's like, which one do you want first? And I said, okay, I would like the bad news. And then that's when she told me that my biological mother had passed away 3 years ago. So I missed her by 3 years.
Mm.
So, and I just remember I was in the living room of my apartment. Both my roommates were gone at the time. I just remember just laying on the floor and just bawling my eyes out. Like that I had just missed her by such a close margin. You know what I mean? Like if it had been like 10 years or something, I would have felt so bad, but like I just missed her. But then, before I got the phone, she's like, well, before you go, you want to know the good news? I'm like, yeah, I suppose. And she's like, the good news is that your mom your mom's parents and your grandmother and her siblings are still alive and they're still in the area. Um, and so she's like, I was wondering if you would like write a letter that you would like to write to your grandmother, and I will send it to her. And so that's what I did.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming since you said at the start of the show that you've had an opportunity to connect, that that letter did
Hmm.
ultimately trigger a desire for them to meet you and connect
It
with you,
did.
etc. Did they know about you prior to the letter that you had
Yes.
existed? Okay.
Yes, they knew I was. They knew I had existed, and in fact, my biological mom had hired a detective who had just started looking into finding my whereabouts, and that happened right before she passed away.
Gotcha.
So
Gotcha. And I think what's even, and I don't even know if you remember this conversation, but I think back in our college days, you had I remember you mentioning at one point, one of the last times you and I had a chance to talk, that you had found your mom. And ironically, your mom literally lived blocks away, I believe, from where I live, where I grew
yes,
up at the
sure
time.
did. Yes,
And you
that
had
was
even
quite
visited me
interesting.
in college. You had even at one point visited me in Chicago. Just the idea that you were that close,
I know that
that just popped up in my head, and I'm thinking, wow, you would like that close. But
I was right there the whole time. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
yeah, it's a lot to
just
take
wow,
in.
wow. And again, I appreciate your transparency in this. This is I'm sure a lot to unpack. But I definitely
It is.
this is going to bless somebody because there are other adoptees out there who never get a chance to meet their parents, never get a chance to live a life that you were able to live, and as your parents share with you, thank God that they were able to take you in and give you a life that you know um, obviously helped to shape and mold you into the person that you are today, and that's a good thing, like I said. And
Yes,
that your mom,
I'm so
like I said, your
thankful.
mom had made a choice. Yeah, I'm sure in an ideal perfect situation we all love to be with the parents who brought us into the world, but
Right.
when you think about other options like abortion and things of that nature, the fact that she
Exactly.
said, hey, no, I want my child to live, I'm just not in a
Yes.
position to properly care for it, so I'd rather take a risk and have somebody possibly adopt her and give her the life that she's deserving of. So I'm thankful for that for you, that she was
Yes,
able to
I
do
am.
that, and people like myself and others that you've met over your lifetime, we got a chance to meet you and get to know you as a person. I'm thankful for that,
Well,
that she
thank
thought
you.
enough of you in advance of those
Yes.
type of moments. So I'm glad of that. Um, One thing I'm curious to know about, again, as we talk about this journey of life, and you've shared quite a bit so
Hmm.
far, is there a particular thing that sticks out to you when you think about the challenges that you've had in life? Is there one particular event that sticks out to you? Did you say that reminds you of saying, you know what, when this happened to me, this was tough. I wasn't sure if I was going to be able to make it through this particular situation, but I was able to, overcome it, the challenges that came with that. And obviously you were able to, because you're here today to be able to actually speak it. So tell us what was that journey? What did that journey look like for you that you think about that's happened at some point in your life that you were like, I wasn't sure when it first happened I was going to be able to pull it off, but I was able to ultimately do so. What was that experience for you?
Well, um, it's one of those things like which experience do you want to know about?
Whichever one you're
um,
comfortable sharing.
I
That's
mean,
what.
I could touch on different challenges like just in life. I mean, for me, it was growing up in a predominantly white community. So that was the first challenge. And
Mm-hmm.
then going to college and got pregnant while I was in college. So that was a challenge. Raising my two children um, by myself, basically as a single parent. I was fortunate enough that in both cases, the fathers of my children were willing to and wanted to be involved in their lives, like even though we had gone separate ways. So we had to, I had to learn the whole co-parenting thing and
Mm-hmm.
all the tricks of that goes on with it. The picking up the child and them not showing up and they're supposed to be there and the whole the normal thing of single parenting. there was times when I didn't think I would make it through that. I mean, I had my daughter, my oldest, on a Tuesday, and within 2 weeks, I was back in school and I actually had her in school with me some of the time because it was too hard for me to find a sitter. So the challenges of trying to finish out the semester with a brand newborn and it's your first one
Hmm.
was a lot. Um, so that was a challenge. I didn't think I would make it through. I was able to graduate. It took a lot. It took me longer. I dropped a lot of classes. I had to retake some classes, and school had always been a struggle for me academically. Um, so I felt like it took me a lot more learning than it does a lot of people just to make it through your regular classes. Um, I used the support of my parents and my family and my close friends to make it through that. I used the support of um, the multicultural center at UWGB when I transferred there. Um, the lady there that helped me pick up out the classes, and that was kind of a place for people of different ethnicities to hang out and to feel that just feel the cohesiveness and that they're not the only person of that ethnicity in the school. Um, and there was a couple other girls that were pregnant, so we all kind of bonded together and supported each other. And I actually lived with the head of the minority center at the time, up until I had my daughter. Me and there's one other pregnant girl. We went and lived with her, and she lived not too far from campus. So there was my support network along with my parents. Um, then, oh man, through the years, like I've been homeless at three different times. Once with my children, um, and my parents. They lived in town, but my mom and dad wanted one thing that they always encouraged and wanted for me and their own and their biological children was to be able to be stable and maintain their independence and to make it through difficult situations. And with me and just the way that my makeup and my character was, I tend to give up easily when it comes to certain things. So because of that, I think they were a little bit more firm with me when it came to certain um, things. And one thing was like, Rachel, we love you. You can come for dinner. You can come to visit us, but you need to figure this out on your own. So no, you cannot just stay with us. So staying with my parents when I was homeless with my two kids was not an option. I think I stayed with them for a total of 2 weeks, and that was it. So I went to the shelter. I stayed at the shelter with my two kids. And at the time, I wasn't in school. So what I did was because I lost my car, so I had no car, two kids to get to the school on buses in the wintertime with no car. We had to be out of the shelter at a certain time. Um, so it's like we were out there. So I'm like, I need a car, and I don't have the finances for it. So I ended up re-registering for school so I could get the financial aid. Got the financial aid, used it for a car, and used that car to get back and forth to work and to school and to bring my kids back and forth to where they go. And then once I worked enough, I was able to get a place. And that's how I brought myself up from being homeless. So for me, it was about learning to utilize my resources. It wasn't fun, it wasn't the greatest, but I made the best of the situation. And, well, I mean, I prevailed to somewhat. So that was a major challenge for me. It was hard, you know. Um, I stayed with friends at times, and it was a lot.
Hmm.
Um, Other challenges are just you know, say I said homelessness, raising two kids on my own, dealing with the fathers of my children, um, dealing with. I had one person that I was dating that had passed away, so that was difficult um, to navigate through that emotionally. And I think a lot of it has to stem around my choices of men and my wanting to fit in with my culture so bad that I was willing to tolerate behaviors that a lot of people wouldn't tolerate
Hmm.
or wouldn't tolerate for as long, which put me in positions that I should not have been in, but I was in because of the decisions I made.
Do
So
you
I kind of went from like the college boys to the street boys. That's what
mhm.
happened.
Do you feel like had you, and again, taking nothing away from the parents who adopted you and did what they did to love on you and treat you as one of their own, but do you believe that had it been a different script where you were raised in a African American household around your culture where that those challenges weren't in place, do you think that would have been had a positive impact overall in terms of decision making, in terms of you just identifying with who you are and just your overall interactions and such? Do you think that was as thankful as I know you are that you had a family to bring you in? Do you feel like the absence of that kind of played a role in you not
Oh,
being
yeah.
as strong in certain areas or as knowledgeable in certain areas that you felt like you would have otherwise been had you had that environment? Is that
It definitely did. Um, I just think like I mean it could have gone either way because like when I look at my biological family, my mom's side is probably a little closer as far as values and stuff go to my white parents. Like my mom's side was very, they were middle class, they were hardworking. All their kids went to school. My grandma was very no nonsense. My grandfather.
go ahead and there you go. We got you back. uh, just having a pause momentarily while you fix your camera. We'll pick up where you left off, no problem. Do what you need to do. Again, this is the Blessings in the Streets podcast. We thank you for being a part of our show today with our guest, Rachel Stevens. She's working out some technical difficulties at the moment. We're going to get her back active and live in just a moment. Um, and while we're doing that, I just want to recap some of what she said. Very powerful story that she's sharing here. And again, I think we need to applaud Rachel for her transparency. I thoroughly have a great respect for. I always had a great respect for
Yes.
you, but even a higher respect for you to sharing your story like this, because this is healing. This is going to be very healing for a lot of people that need to hear this message. So thank you again for sharing it. Go ahead and pick up where you left off. I'm sorry about
Yes,
that.
I'm sorry, I lost you there.
No problem.
Um, what I was saying is about as far as when I look at my biological family, my mom's side was more closer to what my white family was. And that, but then you also have my dad's side, which I was fortunate enough that he was still alive, and I did meet with him and I interact with him a lot. I found out I have all these siblings on my dad's side, so I've like I don't know. They told me it was over 30 siblings, half siblings on my dad's side.
Wow.
So there again, like when I talked to my biological grandma before she passed away about my mom and my dad, my biological mom and dad, she just said that basically my mom and dad were from opposite sides of the railroad tracks.
Hmm.
My mom's side was more well-to-do. My dad's side was more street savvy and survivalist. So I think that sometimes I think that if I had been raised in Chicago with my biological side, I would have understood more of the black culture. I maybe would have been a little bit more savvy when it came to the dating scene and you know as far as picking my friends out and stuff like that. Like just the whole mentality. I think that when it came to dating, especially me when I date like African American men, I am at a disadvantage because a lot of them are like I don't know if it's more that I feel like this. I think it's also because I've heard it. Are like, oh yeah, Rachel, she's a sweet deal. You got the black and you got the white. Yeah, she's her. She got the she's black, black, black. And she's got, she knows a little bit about the hood because of her biological family that she's interacted with, but she is raised by Caucasian families. So it's sweet. You know what I'm saying? So I think I kind of, sometimes I feel like they look at me as a lick. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like they look at me as being a sweet deal. And because of that, I think I was so more susceptible to, I want to say being the prey, but I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I always had to, I always had to like, I feel like I was always fighting to like make my mark and make people understand that this is me. It's not, like a lot of times when we get in debates, like with me and my friends, and a lot of my friends dated black guys. Um, a lot of them were actually Caucasian. So I had a lot of like white girls that were dating black guys. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So then there would be conversations surrounding me, and if I would get in a debate with any of the guys, or more particularly the ones that I'm dating. So I was like, oh, Rachel, you won't understand because you were raised by a white family. You won't understand. It's a
Mm.
black thing. You won't understand. And I always had to defend myself. I was always like, you know what? You're just mad because you don't like that what I'm saying, and what I'm saying does have validation. And for your information, it's not a white thing and it's not a black thing, it's a Rachel thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they'd be like, yeah, whatever. She don't get it. She don't know about the hood. She don't know about the streets. She don't know about this, blah, 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 blah. So um yeah, it got frustrating at times.
I can only imagine. I mean, just that constant, you're having to to justify yourself or explain yourself to the black side, to the white side. If you're not black enough, you're too white enough. It just
Yeah.
there's never that happy, safe space where you can just, like you said, and I think you pointed out, just where it's just I'm Rachel.
Yes.
Can I just be Rachel?
Yes.
Let's forget about who my parents are. Let's forget about that I was raised in Green Bay. Can I just be Rachel? Can I just be the
Right.
person that I am? Can you just get to know me for who I am, and we just go from there?
Right.
And so I totally get that. And
It was a thing. It was a brain thing. Like, it's not a black brain or white brain. This is a Rachel brain. You
mhm,
know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have anything to do with my race or ethnicity. This has to do with how my thinking is, and this is what I think, and this is why. You know.
mhm.
So it's like
Yeah,
always a struggle.
yeah, and I get that, because you should never have to feel like you have to straddle the fence in that, in identifying who you are, and just that whole confusion, and just everything that comes with that. That's unfair to you. And but again, on the flip side of it, I applaud you that, in spite of all the challenges and things that you have mentioned, that you have faced, that you've endured, again, the fact that you are here today, having, those same children that you said you spoke of having challenges in raising, they're now adult children, and they're doing life, and you've obviously, you made it through, and did a good job as a mother, as the best way you knew how, which a lot
Yeah.
of mothers, in particular black mothers, single mothers, have had to do that, and so you are a part of that grouping of strong black women who have, in spite of the odds, in spite of the challenges, raised beautiful children. I had a chance to see a couple of pictures of them, that you showed on your,
Oh yeah.
on social media. So, and just me knowing who you are as a person, as Rachel, I'm sure
Yeah.
you poured into the values, and the insights that they needed to have to be, fine adult individuals in life. We're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to bump
Right.
our heads and have,
Exactly.
my challenge may not be your challenge, yours may not be mine, but nobody's immune from that. Nobody's perfect.
Exactly.
No matter how much of the, we put on the mask, or we do our social media thing to create the perfect picture of life, like everything is great and wonderful, when in fact there's a whole bunch of muddy, filthy,
Yes.
crazy stuff going on,
Muddy water.
muddy waters. So, and that's just what it is. So, and that's why, if you pay attention to the title of our show today, I called it "From Murky and Gray to Finding My Way." You have found
Yep.
your way, and
And I'm
and
still finding my way every
you're
day.
still finding your way, and
Every
that's
day
that's
is a struggle. Every day is a challenge. Um I mean, you know, things, struggles that I've gone through have literally, because I mean, like I said, I grew up in the Catholic Church. I grew up very Catholic, and I had a deep faith when I was younger. Once I started those struggles and those challenges, it's very hard to maintain one's faith
Hmm.
in the midst of struggles and challenges. That's that was a big struggle for me, and it still is every day. You
And
know.
that's understandable too, because you're like, it's natural in our flesh condition to say, when I'm going through what I'm going through, you're like, God, where are you? And I mean,
Yep.
don't get me wrong. I mean,
Exactly.
I'm a
Yep.
believer, and I know you believe in God, but there are moments when you feel like, have you forgotten me? Have you
It is.
did I do something wrong? I
Yeah.
understand that. That's real talk. As for
Yeah. It
people
is.
going
It
through
really is.
that challenge. So, um, so of course, my prayers, of course, will continually be with you in everything that you do, everything that you
Thank
touch.
you.
But I totally understand. I'm not too holy, if you will, to act like that's not a real challenge that people
Yeah.
face, especially in the midst of adversity. So, totally appreciate you sharing that. Um, Speaking of which, when we talk about healing and that whole process of overcoming our adversities, I'm curious to know, for you, in light of everything that you've dealt with over the course of your life, challenges, adversities, and such, what is sort of your, I guess, your go-to routine, your way of processing when adversity knocks on your door, and you're like, okay, here's the next round of adversity. What are you doing to help yourself in a healthy way kind of process whatever it's before you and navigate through that thing, so that you can, again, do it in a healthy and a productive way, and eventually work a way out of that? What does that routine look like for you?
Well, I can tell you things that I've done um, through my challenges. As like I've said, I depend. I had depend on a few close friends.
Hmm.
Um, it's friends that have their phones on, that I know that I can call at 2 o'clock in the morning when I'm upset, or when I'm confused, or when I'm crying. It's friends that will go for coffee with me. And I really don't have a lot of close friends. I have a lot of close associates, but I don't have a lot
Hmm.
of close friends. And the friends that I do have that are very close are very dear to me, and they've been supportive of me, from when my children were growing up. Like, these friends I've known for 15, 20, 30 years. So I depend on them a lot. But I also, and I encourage others to also think about doing as well, is I've also used outside resources. I don't really consider it
Hmm.
friends as being outside resources. I have I have been in and out of therapy. I have there's a center that they made, I don't know, maybe a couple years ago in Green Bay. It's called We All Rise, and that's for, well, primarily for African American, but also for people of color and even Caucasian people to just come together, and support each other. So I've used counseling for that. They have classes and groups that are there that you can partake in. So I got close to a counselor who helped me out there. Um, there's a place called Wise Women, and it's a center for, it's actually Native American based. And I went to I think it was like a 5-day panel called Mending Broken Hearts, which deals with intergenerational trauma, which Native Americans have it a little different than blacks do, but it's all, a lot of it is intergenerational from generation to generation.
Hmm.
So that was interesting. I did that. So um, walks, friends, supports. I've been to Bible studies. Um, just it's really about being open to counseling and groups and therapy and stuff like that. Like, that is also supports for you. And a lot of people kind of shun it, or they feel embarrassed to go to it, or they don't want to go to it, but it does help. And what I always tell people when they ask me about it is, okay, well, you want to talk to me because you say you can't talk to this person or that person because they know your family member, and it's going to get back to your family member. It's going to be a big whole big mess. Well, that's part of the benefits of going to a licensed counselor, someone that's licensed and is practiced in tools that you can utilize that
Mm-hmm.
can help you. And it's also somebody that can give you an objective point of view, that you don't have to worry about everything going back to your family members, your best friend, your spouse, your boyfriend, or whatever. It's a way that you can talk to someone that is going to be more non-judgmental, but also may have more tools than some of your friends and family members. So it's about utilizing your resources and being open to things. That's how I
Exactly.
survived.
That's great, and I'm glad you made mention and highlighting the importance of accessing these outside resources, and specifically the therapy or other support like groups, because as you stated, and again, you know, oftentimes, especially amongst the Black community, we have a stigma against
Yes.
therapy and counseling, like, oh, that must mean I'm crazy or something's wrong with me or whatever. But and I'll be honest, there was a point in time where I was a part of that stigma population of, oh, I don't want to see a therapist. But just even as recent as last year was the first time that I actually officially linked up with a therapist, and it changed my whole perspective, just like you said, to be able to talk to someone who's on the outside of your situation, no judgment zone,
Hmm.
that kind of thing, and could just help you to utilize those tools and things like that, to whether it's to manage stress, whether it's to deal with anxiety, whatever it is that you're working through. I was talking to my counselor before we got on this evening, for my regular session. And again, it's not because something's wrong with me. It's a part of my mental health,
Yes.
and just making sure that I stay balanced, making sure that I stay leveled. So for you to say that, for me to say that, I want anybody who's listening to this, don't shun that away. Don't make it seem
Yeah.
like it's something that's taboo, that you can't benefit from. Because trust and believe, there is much benefit in that, and I would encourage anybody to seek that out, to connect with somebody on the outside and through those resources. And of course, you talked about community of friends. It's important to have
Hmm.
the proper circle of friends around you, even if it's not a whole bunch of people, because it doesn't have to be 100 people. But if
Right.
I got a solid small cluster of people that, like you said, that I know I can call at 2 a.m., and they're not going to be bothered because of my phone call. They're there to be there for me, to hear me out, to be that shoulder to lean on. That is important. And of course, you also mentioned just even the spiritual aspect of it, attending
Hmm.
Bible studies and things like that, especially for someone like yourself who who's admitted, sometimes I've questioned, is
Yeah.
God there for me,
Yeah.
by still attaching yourself to that faith and not foregoing it altogether, but
Yeah. It's
saying, okay,
it's
let me
hard.
work on building that up. Let me work on all of these aspects full circle, so that way I can be made whole again. I can be strong and courageous in what I'm doing. So again, I applaud you for that,
Right.
and for sharing that, because that's important for people to understand. There's nothing to be ashamed of
Yeah.
in that, because again, we all go through our stuff.
Oh yes.
What
Everybody has
Yeah,
their own challenges, their own things they go through.
absolutely.
And the thing is to also remember that one person's situation is not more more or less important than another person's situation.
Exactly.
It might not be the
Exactly.
same situation, but that doesn't mean that's any more or less important to that
Hmm.
person or to the next person. So
Hmm.
I think it's important to remember too.
And what you just spoke to right there, you can sum that up in one word: is empathy.
Yes.
Because it's very easy for us to dismiss or disacknowledge something that this person is going through, because it's not our reality.
Right.
But the truth of the matter is, and I've said this numerous times to people, we are one job loss, one major medical
Hmm.
illness, one divorce, one life altering event, and you could be in the exact same position as that person that you got your nose turned up against, or you're being judgmental about. That could be you.
Oh yeah.
And
Oh
if
yeah.
you're in that situation, you're going to want somebody to empathize. You're going to want somebody to have compassion and understanding for what you're going through. So
Yeah.
what you're saying there is very important. It's very necessary that we understand that, and that we don't get so beside ourselves and thinking that just because that's not my reality today, that it can't be my reality tomorrow, because anything can happen, and
Right.
you could be in that situation. So
I think it's
um
important too that just when you're thinking about things and when you think, well, that will never happen to me, or I won't have to worry about the situation, you always need to leave, I mean, at least I try to leave some margin of, well, there is that 2% chance that I might end up in this situation. It probably won't happen to me, but there's 2% chance that I might end up in that percent in a situation. And if I do, how do I want to be treated? How
Hmm.
do I want people to look at me and to be and talk about me? And I try to
Exactly.
remember that when it comes to other people's situations. You know, it's easy
Hmm.
to say what you should do or what you could have done or what road you should have taken when you're not the one going through it. But when you're through it, when you're actually the person going through it, it's a total different ball game. It's a
Hmm.
total your perspective changes so much when you're actually going through these things yourself.
Hmm. Great point. I got no argument. You're spot on that. Um, One thing I want to know, Rachel, if you had an opportunity to talk to the younger Rachel, knowing everything that you've been through, challenges that you've overcome, adversities, anxieties, all of that stuff wrapped into one. If you could set younger Rachel to the side and give her a bit of nuggets of wisdom, what would you tell her that you think would be of encouragement to her, that would empower her to be able to navigate these challenging times that she may face over the course of her life? What would you say to her, or just in general, somebody that's listening that just needs to hear that encouraging word about how to properly face adversity and challenges? What would you offer up as words of encouragement?
Well, like I would say is, first of all, don't be afraid to look for help.
Hmm.
There's no shame in looking for help. Um, when you're going through these challenges, whatever it is that you're facing, even though you might feel alone, you're not alone. You're not the only one going through that type of challenge. There's other people that you don't know of that are struggling, that maybe not have voiced it, that are going through the challenge. So you may feel alone, and it's a lonely feeling, but you're not alone. So, and that being said, helping, finding your resources, finding those groups and networks, whether it be at home, at school, at church, with your family, outside your family, through therapy or whatever you need to do, take those opportunities to do it. Um, and it's not going to be easy because majority of the time, especially if you're struggling with depression, one of the hard things is to remember to do things that you don't want to do because in the end it'll benefit you. Um, Another thing I'd say is to remember to set boundaries, um, and to revisit those boundaries that you've set for yourself and for people that you interact with, because that can make all the difference in maintaining who you are and what's important to you. Um, I know there's this thing like that we've all heard of called self-talk, and it's very important, especially like depending on what situation that you're dealing with, and especially like if you're like in the middle of a survival situation, whether you're running from domestic abuse or trying to figure out what to do when you're homeless, even though you might hear negative things being said around you or in your mind, you always have to remember that you're important and that you can do this, and that you have to come back to your own inner faith and your own inner concept of what you want for yourself and what your belief system is and what your values are, and your values, your mores, and your belief system, and know that even though other people might not agree with you, you still have the right to maintain those.
Hmm.
That is still your thing. So even though all this stuff is going on outside of you, you always have to do the self talk. Like, I am somebody. I know my worth. You know, um, I know that I can do this, and I know where to go if I need help. Um, yeah, that's a big thing. Is know your worth and remember to do. I know people don't like. I don't exactly like the term, but I use it all the time. Like self care. Like there's nothing
Hmm.
wrong with self care. There's nothing wrong with taking a down day. Like me and my friends, there's all the time. hey, I'm just letting you know I'm having a really bad day. I'm struggling with depression, anxiety, financial hardships, or whatever. I just need to shut down. So I'm just going to let you know that I'm okay, but you won't be hearing me for 2 days. And they'll be like, okay, that's fine. We'll leave you alone. We're not gonna, we're not gonna bother you. But can you just text me and let me know, hey, I'm okay. Just checking in.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what we do. So I take that downtime. Sometimes I'll go for walks. Sometimes I'll just drink a cup of coffee. Sometimes I'll talk to a friend. Sometimes I won't. Like, there's nothing wrong with self care. You need that time to mentally think about what you're going through, to kind of make your own list in your mind of what you need to do next, and just kind of refocus and regroup. That's really important. Um, and well, I don't know. Just remember what's important to you, and remember that you are of value. And remember that even though people might look at you some way or some sort of for because of the struggles that you've gone through, no matter what anybody says, you're here today, which shows resilience just in the fact that you're still standing from whatever adversity you've gone through. And resilience is becoming.
Hmm.
Resilience is becoming. So that's I
That's
don't
good
know.
stuff. That's good stuff.
That's
No, you
what I think.
that I think younger Rachel. I think anybody listening in that's confused about how to navigate this thing we call adversity and valley experiences. I think you gave some excellent advice on that. So I applaud you for that. That's good stuff. Um, so before I let you go,
Mm-hmm.
um, what I do want to do, of course, is take an opportunity to celebrate you. So I'm curious to know: is there anything that you got coming up, or anything that you want to share with us? Big news is happening, whether it's with your kids, yourself, anything exciting that you got coming up that we can kind of acknowledge and celebrate for you. That you'd like to share.
Well, I wouldn't say anything really exciting, but I try to remember my blessings. My two children are, well rounded and well adjusted. Um, my daughter, and I'm sure it's because I didn't really hide anything from my children. Like, they knew a lot of the stuff that I was going through, which it has its good points and its bad points. But one thing that came out of it is my daughter said she wanted to be a therapist, and now she's gone to school and she has her advanced practice therapist license. She got her master's degree, and my son is raising his son as best as he can. He's had challenges. He's a single father raising his son. Um, his the mother of his son is not able to because she has her own mental health issues and challenges, so he has taken that on, and I'm just so glad and so proud that he is fighting every day for his son, and to give him a good life and to teach him what's right and wrong and to be a good man, and that stuff. So that is exciting for me, just being there and seeing my grandson grow up. um Personally, I've been knocking around the idea of maybe starting an LLC, for like home care. That's, like
Hmm.
I said, that's what I've kind of been doing. I've been working with the disabled for many years, and
We're gonna bring you back in just a second here. We just working out some kinks with your video. Go ahead and take care of that.
she's okay. She's pissing
No,
me off. Did you not tell
you,
her?
you're good. You're good. Just go ahead and work out your kinks. Um, while Rachel is getting herself back online, just this has been an awesome show. Rachel shared some very powerful things, and your successes that you shared so far is awesome. Your kids are doing wonderful things, and
Yes.
um and and you talk about your son. Like, typically when you talk about single parent, you don't usually say single dad,
Yeah.
and
That's
so
true.
the fact that your son is stepping up and doing what he can to properly take care of his son, that's wonderful. That your daughter is obviously doing some great and awesome things. And I don't want to cut you off. I know you were saying something else before
Oh,
your
oh no.
camera glitched a little bit, but go ahead.
Yeah. No, I'm sorry. I'm having technical issues
No,
because
you
I'm
were
with
talking
the
about
guy.
your LLC that you were going to start up,
Well,
or that you're
I've
thinking
been
about.
I'm thinking about it because I've been working for in adult family homes for years, and I've been thinking of going off of my own, and maybe doing like a short term supportive healthcare for like people that are coming out of like hospital situations like surgery. And I got that idea
Hmm.
because I had a friend who had come out of surgery and she wanted to stay at home. She didn't want to stay with her family. She wanted to stay at home. And she's like, I had a whole shoulder surgery. I need someone to help me do the dishes. I need someone to help me bathe. I need somebody to help me do my laundry in full clothes. I can't do any of this. And I'm like, okay. And I was able to do it for her through actually through the company that I already worked for, because they have a supportive home care, independent supportive home care element. So I was able to do that. But I'm like, you know what? I can do this on my own.
Hmm.
Offer it for people that want to stay home, especially like elderly. They might not want to go to a nursing home every single time they have certain knee surgery or hip surgery or whatever. So I'm looking at maybe doing that, like recuperative care, kind of.
Okay.
So we'll see how that goes.
Great, great. Well, I'm going to speak it into existence, and we are looking forward to you, uh, at a later time being able to tell us, "Yep, this is actually happening. This is the real deal." I followed through with what I said, so that's awesome. You started off saying that you didn't really have a whole bunch to celebrate. Yeah, you have plenty to celebrate. Two
Oh yeah,
wonderful
we'll be
kids.
there.
You're doing great in spite of everything that you've gone through. You have been more than a conqueror, and you still have dreams. You still have there's a reason why you went through what you went through, but there's also a reason why God kept you.
Yeah.
He didn't allow those moments to take you out. He
Yes.
still has purpose for you. He still has a calling on your life for things for you to do, to impact the world, to impact lives, and you're doing that every day when you help people who can't help themselves. That's powerful. When your daughter is looking to help people who can't help themselves, that's powerful. When your
Yes.
son is doing taking care of his son, he can't take care of himself. That's powerful. So don't shun giving yourself credit for that, because you are very much deserving of that,
Well, thank you, Joe.
you should be celebrated, and that's what we're doing. This is the part of the show that we do. We celebrate Rachel
Celebrate good
tonight. We
things.
celebrate
Yeah.
Rachel. Good
And that's
stuff.
so important to remember, when you're
Yes.
dealing with adversities in life in general. It's just rough right now, for
Hmm.
everybody. Um, is just remember that there are still things to celebrate, and there is
Absolutely.
a purpose for living. You might not know it now, but if you just wait and just make it through the next day, even if you only can make it through the next minute to minute, just do it, because in the end, there'll be something good for it. You know,
Exactly. A win is a win. It's a small win, a
that's
big
right.
win, or somewhere in the middle. We'll take all the victories.
Yep, it's
We
still a
love
win
that.
either way.
It's still
Yes,
a
it is.
win. Great, great. Well, Rachel, it is without saying that it has been a pleasure having you on the podcast. I again appreciate your sharing of your journey, your transparency. Um, it's been very well received, and I know that somebody that's going to have an opportunity to listen today on this show is going to be blessed by what you've had to share. Just true strength, true words of encouragement and support for people who need that. They need to hear the rawness, the authenticity of the messaging that you have taken it out of your time, out of your schedule to share. And I don't take that lightly, and I'm sure those who have an opportunity to listen to our podcast episode today, they too will not uh, take that lightly at all. So I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this. It is very much appreciated.
Thank you, Joe.
Um,
I've really enjoyed my time here, and I'm glad to talk about things. And
Absolutely,
sharing is part
absolutely,
of the education thing too. Is part of gaining that knowledge and listening to others and seeing what they're going through and helping each other out. It's about community and helping each other out. That's important. So I really appreciate
absolutely.
you inviting me on your session tonight.
Thank you so much. And for those who have had an opportunity to listen, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, please subscribe, please like, please share, please comment. Um, because again, this is an opportunity to bless other people through what we're talking about tonight and on any other shows. But tonight we're talking about Rachel and her story and her journey. So if you were blessed by that, please do that for us. And just remember, here at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and where your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you for tuning in. And until next time, God bless and take care of yourselves. See you
God
next time.
bless. Good night.
Good night.